You know, what if I told you that the entire future of artificial intelligence, we're talking those massive gigawatt scale data centers powering tomorrow's digital world, actually relies entirely on a company founded way back in 1851? It sounds crazy, right? But this 170-year-old glassmaker is quietly acting as the ultimate foundational bottleneck breaker for our entire modern digital economy.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be diving into the incredibly profitable and honestly extraordinary roadmap of Corning Incorporated. Now, you probably know them for making Pyrex dishes or the tough glass on your smartphone, but today we're going to see how they're actually operating as the invisible puppet master of modern tech.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the invisible tech giant, break down the Springboard plan, and then look at their twin engines of growth, rewiring Gen AI and securing U.S. solar, before finishing up with the future of infrastructure. Seemingly disparate industries all woven together by one massive plan. Section 1. The Invisible Tech Giant, 170 Years of Innovation. To really grasp where Corning is going, we briefly need to recognize where they've been. I mean, this legacy material science company evolved from literally making the glass encasing Thomas Edison's first light bulbs, to engineering the fiber optics that carry the internet, to building today's most critical infrastructure. It's a shift that really moves us from the invisible to the visible. Whenever we use apps, stream our favorite shows, or query an AI, we're just interacting with software. But software is basically just an abstract concept without the hard physical material science actually making it possible. The cloud isn't floating up in the sky somewhere. It's buried in the ground, and it's wrapped tightly in Corning's glass and fiber. Section 2, the Springboard plan, overarching financial roadmap. That invisible necessity we just talked about is exactly what is driving their calculated, massive-scale ambitions, codified into what they called the Springboard plan. Launched in late 2023, this strategy is a sharp, really authoritative roadmap designed to dramatically improve their sales and return profiles straight through 2026. And let me tell you, the execution has been absolutely staggering. By their Q2 2025 earnings, which is just the halfway point of this plan, they had already added a massive $3.1 billion to their annualized sales run rate. Get this, they originally aimed to add $3 billion total in their high-confidence plan, and they completely smashed right through that ceiling halfway through the timeline. So, an absolutely crucial metric to watch here is their target operating margin, which they set at an aggressive 20%. They've already seen a rapid 270 basis point expansion since the plan launched, putting them comfortably at a 19% margin right now. They aren't just selling more stuff. They're actively translating those higher sales into intensely profitable cash flows. Now, the pillars of this strategy cement exactly how this financial engine runs. We're looking at an upgraded target of adding up to $6 billion in total sales, a vastly improved return on invested capital that's up 430 basis points, and some seriously strong free cash flow generation. And what does all this massive cash generation fund? Well, it fuels their two massive twin engines of physical growth. Which brings us to Section 3. Engine 1, rewiring Gen AI. Let's step inside the data center. The explosion of generative AI has created a colossal physical bottleneck. The sheer computing power required by hyperscalers right now simply cannot function on the old physical architecture. It just breaks down. To grasp exactly where Corning steps in, you have to understand two quick industry terms. Hyperscalers are doing two things. First, they are scaling out, meaning they're rapidly adding more and more nodes across a distributed campus network. But they are also scaling up, which means densely packing and connecting hundreds of hyper-powerful GPUs inside single server racks. Both of these moves require pushing unimaginable amounts of data at literal light speed. Now, what's really interesting here is the physical limit of traditional materials. A single Blackwell-like AI node today has over 1,200 links using more than 2 miles of heavy copper wire. But as hyperscalers pack more GPUs into a single node, they hit a wall. They cross what's called the electrical to optical frontier. Basically, the distance gets way too long for copper to handle, making high-density optical fiber an absolute physical necessity. Let's translate that data into sheer impact for a second. Generative AI requires 4 to 10 times more fiber per rack than your traditional servers. We are talking about future server designs pushing toward 5,000 individual fibers per single rack. That is an absolutely astonishing level of density.
And believe me, the tech giants know it. Just listen to these massive partnerships relying entirely on Corning's new high-density fiber. Amazon just signed a multi-billion-dollar optical fiber deal. NVIDIA is pouring $3.2 billion into advanced factories. Meta is a $6 billion anchor customer. And Lumen Technologies, they outright reserved 10% of Corning's entire global fiber capacity for 2025 and 2026. Without Corning, these AI brains simply cannot talk to each other. No way around it.
Moving on to Section 4, Engine 2, Securing U.S. Solar. Let's shift our narrative from digital infrastructure over to physical power. Engine number 2 of the Springboard plan takes us out of the data center and into the daylight, tackling a massive vulnerability in our global infrastructure, the solar supply chain. So let's take a trip to Hemlock, Michigan, and see how this builds a completely different kind of foundation. They are hitting the gas on a $1.5 billion investment at their advanced manufacturing facility there to support the surging demand for U.S.-made solar components. Plus, they're adding hundreds of advanced manufacturing jobs in the process. By leveraging the capabilities they already had, they've quietly built a highly profitable, fully vertically integrated solar supply chain right on U.S. soil. It happens in steps. First, they produce hyper-pure polysilicon. Then they transform that into higher-value solar wafers. And finally, they are moving straight into making the solar modules themselves, the whole shebang. It's an end-to-end domestic powerhouse. And if you're wondering if the demand is actually there to support this, well, the numbers are stunning. 100% of Corning's 2025 polysilicon and wafer capacity is already entirely sold out to committed customers. Not only that, but 80% of their capacity for the next 5 years is already completely spoken for. There's literally zero available for next year. It's wild. The financial impact of this is just huge. What started out as a quiet, high-return re-entry into the solar market, mostly by just activating some idle assets they had laying around, is now projected to triple its sales run rate by 2027. It's building into a massive $2.5 billion revenue stream by 2028. Talk about a real game changer. Finally, Section 5, the future of infrastructure. Okay, so what you should really take away from all of this is how these two giant engines, Gen AI connectivity and domestic solar power, tie perfectly together. They demonstrate that material science is the ultimate enabler. You literally cannot have a software revolution or a green energy transition without the raw physical materials required to build it in the first place. And this brilliantly illustrates the reality of our digital age, bringing it into sharp focus. A 170-year-old company is proving that no matter how advanced our code gets, without the fundamental materials science to craft high-density glass fibers or hyper-pure silicon, the digital revolution hits a literal brick wall. Without this stuff, AI campuses simply couldn't physically connect. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating reality to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Our limitless wireless digital lives are entirely dictated by our physical footprint. So as we continue to build out the gigawatt-scale AI campuses and the massive green energy grids of tomorrow, what physical bottlenecks will materials science need to break next? Thanks for joining us today, and keep questioning the invisible architecture all around you.